So if you want to if you want a big payoff, how big does your risk have to be? Maybe it's got to be life-threatening. You know, I don't necessarily mean like you have to go jumping off of buildings, but if you bet it all and you win, you're going to win big. You guys know what roulette is? Yeah, you spin the wheel.
Oh.
So if you bet, see if you know, if you bet $1 on black and it lands on black, how much do you get back? $1. Yeah. Basically, you get back half of it because it's 50-50. And if it comes up red, you lose. So you get your $1 back if you win it. What if you bet on zero? Anybody know? What's that? I mean, if you bet on the number 0, it's green. Yeah. I'm going to go from memory here. I think it's like 42 to 0. So if you bet on 0, and it comes up 0, then you win $42. And there's always that thing where it's like, man, if I put 1,000 on 0, I would have gotten $42,000. That's true. But you had to bet on 0. And what are the chances it's going to come up? Pretty slim. But if you want to make $1 million, you're going to have to bet big on 0. Yeah, the risk that you're going to have to take is going to be big. If you want a big reward, the risk is going to have to be big. This is one of the reasons that entrepreneurs make so much money. I'm not just talking about business owners. I'm talking about people who will try something new and innovate in some new way. So it makes sense that those are also the folks who fail a lot, because you're going into uncharted territory. If you wanted to open up a taco shop, how big of a risk is that? Maybe. What do you lose if you lose your taco shop?
Money.
Yeah. How much?
Probably nothing.
Yeah. Could you sell the taco shop if you bankrupt it?
Yeah.
Probably. So you can get some of it back. It's not a huge risk. And it's a pretty safe thing to do, because how do you run a taco? Actually, if I wanted to know how to run a taco shop, what would be the best way for me to learn how to run a taco shop?
Learn from someone who was a successful taco shop.
Yeah. How can I learn from them?
Well, what I would do is like, give me a job for a month. I don't want you to pay me. Just show me what you do.
Intern. Show up, or you either take a job or intern. Go to a place that's already doing what you want to do. See what they're doing, figure out how you can do it better. Easy. Simple, not easy, but simple. Now, if you want to do something new, like build rockets that go to space, how do you do that? Who do you learn from?
The internet.
That's our best bet. Maybe learn from the internet. It's a very difficult thing to learn how to do, because no one else has done it before. I mean, I guess NASA's built it, but like, for example, Elon Musk, one of the things about his rockets is that his rockets go up, and then they, into space, and then they come back down where they're supposed to. In other words, he can land the rocket, and he can reuse the rocket, which means that a space mission, which before would have cost tens of millions of dollars, because they would launch the rocket up, then they would jettison the rocket, and then the rocket would be useless after that, because it would land in the ocean, it would get destroyed, or it would end up in orbit. Elon Musk figured out a way to bring the rockets back down to Earth, which eliminated a massive amount of the cost. That's why SpaceX is such a huge deal. It's not just because he can do what NASA does. It's because he can do what NASA does for a fraction of the cost. Plus, he doesn't have to plan his missions out years in advance the way that NASA does. He can just go, hey, let's launch a rocket next week or in 2 weeks. And if they put the power behind, the brain power behind it, they can do it. NASA couldn't do that. NASA's going to take years, at the very least several months to launch something. Now, if Elon Musk, how many rockets of his have failed? Several, lots. Same with Jeff Bezos and his Blue Origin. A lot of their rockets have failed. Because if you're doing something new, you don't have a model to pattern yourself after. So yeah, it's a big risk, but that's why the reward is so big. Because you'll have lots of people telling you it can't be done, and then you'll have a few people telling you it can, and maybe it can, maybe it can't. The truth is, you don't know until you do it. Imagine if Elon Musk launches his first 5 or 6 rockets, they all blow up, and then he just kind of goes, forget it, can't be done. Imagine if it was going to be the 7th rocket that would have worked, or the 8th rocket that would have worked. He never would have known. I'm sure you guys have seen that cartoon like two people digging tunnels, and like and they're both about to hit like the treasure, but one of them's turning back. That's one of the really hard things of life, because it always feels like maybe one more, maybe one more, maybe one more, but in actuality, man, the treasure may not even be there. You follow? Yeah. That's the hard thing about like astrophysics and things like that. It's that you don't know if there's an answer. You're looking for an answer that may never be there. Like Einstein, he articulates the theory of relativity. The reason that we remember him is because the theory of relativity works. It exists. He didn't know it existed. Imagine if that guy had gone to work on this project for his entire life, and then at the end of it turns out there was no theory of relativity. We would never know who the guy was. We only knew him because it was innovative and it was successful. I promise you, there are hundreds of other people who were trying to pursue that exact same thing, and they're going down the wrong paths and didn't realize it. This is why entrepreneurs, again, make so much money, versus even just like a business owner. Business owners don't make as much money as entrepreneurs who do things in new ways. I mean, say what you want about Amazon, man, but that's a new way of doing business. Even Walmart was a newer way of doing business when they did it. And so, high risk, but high reward. That's how I describe my jiu-jitsu. High risk, low percent. Do crazy shit. Sometimes it works. Not usually though. But when it does, it looks great. It's on the highlight reel. Yeah.
So you're saying basically like when you think you should stop, that's when you keep going? Like keep going to this like no more or what?
I would suggest to you that knowing when to quit is a skill in itself. Yeah. And I mean, how much money should you pour into a project that's failing? I don't know. What if you poured just a little bit more into it? Would you have been successful? Maybe, maybe not. That's one of those things that I think we do badly. We tell people, guys, do not give up on something. Keep going, keep going, keep going. You could get 50 years into something, and it could have been a complete waste of 50 years. You know? Oh, but you'll never know. Yeah, but and then they'll we'll say, well, it's the journey along the way. You never would have known otherwise. But no, because if you had abandoned that project 30 years ago, imagine what you could have accomplished if you put your 30 years into some other direction. When should you quit? I don't know. That's the hard part. That's wisdom. And Mark Cuban, who that guy is. He's a business person. I think he owns basketball in the Miami Heat, I think. He has a great thing where he talks about when it's time to quit. Because you don't know when it's time to quit. You find out afterwards. In fact, sometimes you'll find out you never should have started in the first place. How do you know? Wisdom. And it's that thing that stops a lot of people from starting in the first place. Well, I probably won't be successful anyway. Well, yeah, not with that attitude. Should you start? Yeah. When should you quit? When should you give up? I don't know. We're really good at telling people that they should keep going when we're not the ones who have to keep going. We're really good at telling people, you got to go for your dreams, when we're not the ones who are going to be sacrificing our lives to get in that direction. But, that's the hard part, because you've only got this one life. You can't save the game and then try a different avenue. And if it doesn't work, come back to your old save game and go in the other direction. So, life's written in ink, not pencil, unfortunately. So I guess that means that maybe whichever path you choose, you better find a way to make it worthwhile, to make it worth your while. I believe in getting into hot water. It keeps you clean. Literally, hot water can keep you clean. But also, getting into hot water can keep you clean in other ways. No matter what I ever accomplish in life, no matter what I do, no matter how successful I ever am, I have a friend named Billy. And Billy, I think I've mentioned him before maybe. Billy's this little Chinese dude about this big. He's Chinese from China. His family's from China. I went to high school with him. He's one of the only friends I still have from high school. And I love it because Billy got married a few years ago. And Billy went to China and found a Chinese girl in a village in China. That's who he married. And then they got married, brought her here. And Billy's grown up here. I believe he was born in China, but he grew up in the U.S., in Los Angeles. So he's got this Chinese wife, and they had themselves a Chinese baby. And he named his Chinese baby Oliver. Great. Who named the Chinese baby Oliver? He did. And I met him for the first time on FaceTiming, and he's explained to Oliver. He says, Look, that's Theo Stephen. Theo Stephen. I love this country, dude. Yeah, Chinese dude naming his baby Oliver, telling him that the white guy is Theo Stephen. Love this country, man. And yeah, but anyway, I don't care, man, if I won the Nobel Prize, and then I came in and you guys go, wow, Scott, you won the Nobel Prize. Yeah, and then Billy visited me that day. Billy would have a way of telling stories about me from when I was in high school that would take me off of that Nobel Prize platform and bring me back down to where everybody else is. Because Billy has this talent for reminding me, hey, Scott, remember that one time that you fill in the blank with something I did? Yeah, I remember that. Now that you mention it, I do remember that. Yeah, that was pretty stupid. Remember that one time that you, and he has a great way again of just bringing me back down to earth. Hot water does that too. Getting in trouble does that too. Getting in trouble has a way of humbling you, of reminding you what your limits really are. Because obviously when we go and do things, we think, I can get away with this. And then you go and do it and you find yourself in trouble, and then you're like, oh, I can't get away with this. It teaches you what your limits are. If you don't get into trouble, how do you know what your limits are? But hopefully you're picking up the important part of the story there. When I was in high school, you got suspended for cheating. You got suspended for plagiarizing. What happens now if you get caught cheating, plagiarizing?
Expelled.
You get expelled from the school for cheating?
Oh, like this for cheating?
Yeah.
Don't do it again.
A slap on the wrist?
Yeah, even that. Don't do this again. I'm going to do it again. I'd rather you didn't. And then you do it again, and then the best that they come up with is they give you an F on that assignment. And by the way, we're encouraged by the administration to let you redo the assignment if you get caught cheating. How many? Yeah, exactly. So, but you see the problem there. So what's the limit for cheating? Well, there isn't one. How far can you go? And by the way, if you get caught cheating in one class, it doesn't even carry over to the other class. So you can get caught cheating multiple times in multiple classes and nothing ever comes of it. Really. The worst case scenario, you fail the class. So you fail the assignment that you probably would have failed anyway. You don't learn a limit there. You follow. Imagine if we suspended students for plagiarizing. So what we've done is we've removed a limit and said you can go as far as you want. So you don't learn if there's a limit. In a more practical sense, I would bet that, well, not even I bet, I could tell most of you guys. If I watch you walking down the hallways, if I see you interacting in the world, I could tell you if you had rough play when you were growing up. You know what I mean by rough play? Dad, what's that? Like your dad picks you up and throws you, and then you hit the ground, you get up and you go running at them, and he picks you up and he slams you on the bed, and you bounce up off of the bed and you're laughing. You follow? You wrestled with people when you were growing up, you had somebody who roughhoused with you, you played, versus someone who, dad picked you up, dropped you in the bed, and someone came, don't you do that with him, leave, no, don't. And then they stopped you from having rough play. People who had rough play, there are significant personality differences between people who engaged in that kind of play growing up and people who did not. And you can actually see it in people when they're walking. You can see it in people and how they present themselves. You present yourself very differently. And if you're paying attention to it, talk to your friends who had, like for example, if there's a girl who had, I guess here's an example. There was a girl a few years ago who got into a fight here. It's a long story. She just beat the crap out of somebody else. The person deserved it, by the way. And she got to talking to her. She had older brothers. And once she said she had older brothers, I go, got it. So what happens if you're a girl and you have older brothers? In her case.
It's tough. You're going to be tough.
Yeah, you're going to be tough because they roughhoused with her. Because they didn't draw a distinction when she was a little girl between her and the other brothers. Now, if you have the parent who steps like, no, she's a girl. What are you now learning a girl is supposed to be?
Be soft.
Be soft, not supposed to roughhouse. That kind of gender identity is put on you at that very young age. This is how you're supposed to behave, and this is how you're not supposed to behave. So you learn what that limit is, but that limit is way back here. And now, what's going to hurt you in life? A lot. A lot. And I mean even just physically. Remember last night, this little girl named Leia, she's this old, I don't know, yeah, she's named Leia after the Star Wars character. And she comes up, and I'm smiling, and she has her little geek pulled up, and she said, Professor, they call me Professor, so Coach Professor, I have and she's pointing to a scab on her arm. And she's like, I got a cut, and it hurts when I roll on the mat. And I'm like, so I'm not your dad, I'm your coach, what the hell do I care? She's like 5. And she's like, but it hurts. I go, it hurts? She's like, yeah. I go, oh. Right on it. She's like, ow. I go, ow. She goes, ow. I go, ow. And she starts laughing, and then she runs away. What did she learn right there? A little something. What's that? It didn't hurt that bad. And you're expected to be tough and go through things. That's why you're there. You're not there so we can sit there and go, If a kid cries on the mat, we kick him off the mat. We tell him, there's no crying in jiu-jitsu, get off the mat. We take their gi off of them and everything, make them go sit on the bench outside. And what do they learn? They learn that there's no crying in jiu-jitsu. Why? Because there's a place for it, sure. We're not saying don't you ever cry in life. There's no crying in jiu-jitsu. It's a very different thing. When you're in that kind of environment, you need to get tough. I mean, the alternative is to pull them back. It's good. You learn the limits. This is how when you're a little kid, when someone's roughhousing with you, your dad picks you up and throws you on the bed and bounces you off and throws you on the bed and bounces you off and eventually throws you so hard that you slam into the wall. And then you get hurt and the dad's like, shh. Dad learned a limit, but so did you. You now learn how far you can go before you get hurt. Jungle gyms, right now they're spongy and they have mulch and stuff like that so you don't get hurt. When I was a kid, we had concrete. How many mistakes would you make before you learned that you couldn't swing that way? A couple. Before you fall, and you also learn how you're not supposed to fall. Because you put your arm out and it breaks. In other words, there's consequences of the falling. I'm not saying, by the way, like, we should bring back cement and we should put gators down there. I'm just saying that. That would be cool. Yeah, it would be cool though. I'm saying is that you learn those limits. Being in hot water, getting into trouble. These things teach you limits that you cannot learn any other way. There's something to be said about walking away from something. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. And then being told, you shouldn't do that. It's going to hurt you. Oh. It's kind of like if you have a parent, and the parent will teach you, they'll say, don't go in there. Why not? It's scary. And you teach the kid, scary? Yeah, it's scary. Don't go in there. It's scary. Scary. Now, what's the kid learned about scary?
That's not good.
It's not good. Are there things in life that you need to do, even though they're scary?
Yes.
Yeah. There's a difference between scary and dangerous. Two very different things. A little kid goes over to a stove. You tell the kid, don't touch. It's hot. The kid goes, it's hot. You go, it's hot. It's hot. Does the kid learn that it's hot?
Unless they touch it, they'll learn.
Then they touch it. They learn something they could not have learned any other way. I'm not saying you grab the kid's hand, touch the stove, and you hold it until they melt. What I'm saying is that, and you don't want the kid necessarily to get burned that way. But if the kid does get burned that way, they've learned something they could not have learned any other way. And there are those kinds of things in life that we have to test limits. We have to test boundaries. We have to see what works. We have to see what doesn't work. We shouldn't confuse dangerous with scary. They're very different things. And you only learn what's dangerous when you confront what's scary. And you confront those limits. So confront the limits. Questions? Comments? Yes?
Do you think like a boy that grows up in a girl household, do you think he's gonna be like soft?
It depends on how they're raised. If you grow up in an environment that expects you to be tougher, you'll be tougher. If you grow up in an environment that expects you to be softer, you'll be softer. This is why when people complain about young people say like, oh my God, they're so soft and they're angry. Well, my question is, then why did you raise them that way? Because we're doing it. You guys aren't waking up in the morning. Younger people aren't waking up in the morning going, I want to be soft today. I want to be weak. No, it's because of how people are raised. And some of you are incredibly strong. Some of you are incredibly soft. I mean, you're as hard as wet paper towels. But some of you guys are really strong. And this is one of those things that like I talk about with, do you have advantages that people in other schools don't have? Absolutely. How long could you guys live in La Jolla comfortably? Seems like a cool place to live, yeah? Got pools and shade and stuff.
That?
Yeah.
I would have loved it for that.
Right.
It was fun.
Now, how long do you think that kids in La Jolla could survive in your neighborhoods?
I thought 2 days before the day.
How long?
2 days before the day.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like, we also have this idea that we all live in the hood. No, I'm talking about like, most of us do not live, in the hood. But we live in tougher situations, meaning if you took yourself and put yourself in their comfortable situation, you could probably do pretty well. Sure. If you take them and put them in your difficult situation, how long would they survive? Either literally or figuratively, not much. That tells you something, that if you allow yourself to be shaped by those difficult circumstances and not become contemptuous, not to become full of anger and resentment, but you allow yourself to be shaped in positive ways, you can take those strengths forward in life and accomplish things that they could never accomplish. Because, how much, going back to this, how much adversity can they handle? They learn that the adversity line is right there before mom and dad step in to fix everything for them. If you don't have that, you learn that the line is way over there. So roll up the sleeves, let's get to work. You'll be able to persevere way more. Do they have advantages? Yes. Do you have advantages? Yes. For myself, if I know that the line is way over there and I'm working hard, great, let's go up against them. Because once the real world hits, mommy and daddy are no longer there. Now, in certain ways. So, yeah. You learn that the limits are there. And then for exceptional people, you learn that the lines are immaterial. But that's another time. Others?